Give me 10 minutes and I will show you exactly how to crush every single sales job interview so you can land your dream job with ease. Now, these 5 simple steps are simply crushing your previous experience story, how to show up correctly, how to flip the frame. I know that might be confusing. Let me explain. How to know the offer is actually good. And number 5, the best question to ask at the end of the interview. The last thing you want to do when they ask, do you have any questions, is to be like, And this one question actually made me hire the salesperson that I have right now in my business. And for those of you who are new here, my name is Garrett Campbell. I own Better Endeavors. It's a company that has a sales training that also places these sales reps guaranteed into 6, 7, 8, and even 9-figure businesses. But let's dive into things. Number 1 is how to craft your previous experience story. I have a client who I will not name where on our onboarding calls after you buy the closing Bible, this is one of the things we do immediately is how to craft this story. And when he hopped on the call, I was like, do you have any concerns? As we kind of dive into things, he's like, well, to be honest, I have some sales experience, but I feel like I just really don't have any, and I don't want it to sound bad when I go to actually get on, interviews. And I told him, I'm like, okay, well, you tell me your story. I'll tell it back to you in a way that sounds sexy. Like, how do we slap a ribbon on top, right? So I was in college and, I wanted to make some money. I kind of knew some stuff about electronics. So I thought it just made sense to maybe get a job at Best Buy. So I went straight to the manager. I got the job and I didn't do bad. I was the best sales rep, but it was just selling electronics, and they actually cut, everyone besides me, and they moved me to a new location. But when COVID hit, I did get let go, which was pretty unfortunate. So I got a door-to-door sales job, but I live in Canada, dude. It's freaking freezing. So after a month, I quit, and I don't want to tell business owners I just quit because I got cold, because I don't want to sound like a bitch. So then afterwards, when COVID kind of fixed itself up a little bit, I got a job with Dyson selling vacuums, and they were obviously it's just vacuums, so I really don't think that's gonna do much when I'm trying to sell $5,000 packages for the businesses that we have access to inside the closing Bible. But they were $1,000, $1,500 vacuums. We were selling it to people, and I was the best sales rep there. There were only 3 people, but I was the best person there. I got relocated to their location with the most foot traffic, and that's what I do now. But between Best Buy and Dyson and door to door, which I barely even did, I really just don't think that that's enough. I basically have no sales experience. So how should I approach job interviews? I was like, okay, are you ready? Because I'm going to make this sound crazy. And again, the goal is not to lie here, but it's to make yourself sound as good as possible. Saying, hey, I'm a beginner, I've never done this before, I want to hop in, when you actually have relevant experience, you just have to make it sound sexy. It's how do we slap a ribbon on top? So what I told back to him was, so while I was in college actually pursuing a business degree at a pretty prestigious school in the area, I'm based in Canada here, I saw everyone around me, didn't really have much money, and that's really just not how I operate. Just because I'm in college is not an excuse to not make money, because I'm a hustler. So the first thing I knew was, okay, I know electronics, but I don't want to be at a place where I only earn hourly income. So how do I make as much money as physically possible? I'll go to an electronics store, Best Buy, and try to sell the most electronics as physically possible so I can make the most money in the least amount of time and have a high leverage opportunity. So I did that. I quickly rose to being the #1 sales rep. They actually, funds were kind of tight for the business, that location as a whole. So they cut the whole sales team, but they kept me up until the day where unfortunately this little thing called COVID hit. And for obvious reasons, we had to shut down the business. So most people could maybe just go home and be like, oh no, I can't make money, I got laid off because of COVID. That's not me, because what I found out is you can't close people's homes. So I got into door-to-door immediately. And I did that for a relatively short amount of time, but it really kind of toughened me up to, getting no's from people who are not expecting you whatsoever, in door-to-door. But I still did really good. I got a couple sales here and there. But ultimately, when COVID kind of reopened, I figured this was my opportunity to get back into stores. Best Buy, funds were still tight, and I figured, why don't I take a different route? And believe it or not, Dyson's recruiter actually reached out to me. They knew what I did over at Best Buy, how I was their best performing sales rep, so they thought I would be a perfect fit to sell their higher end vacuums. Not like the little, okay, we pedal it around. I'm talking the higher end vacuums. They're anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500. And I had to convince, older people the utility of this vacuum and the technicalities of it, and really just prop it up, put it on a pedestal, so we could convince someone to drop $1,500 on a vacuum, right? Not the easiest task in the world, but believe it or not, I was the best sales rep out of a multi-person sales team, quickly rose to the top of that after doing that at Best Buy and now Dyson. And, to be honest, it just really got to the point now to where I feel like a big fish in a small pond. Like, I've been the best sales rep at literally every single thing that I've done up to date. And I'm really just looking for a challenge. And although I don't see, really selling for your business as a challenge, I see it as the way to, move up in my sales career. And after doing some research on your company, I think that I would be a perfect fit to knock this out of the park and be the best sales rep, just like I did in the past roles before. And he looked at me and he was like, holy shit, like, you can sell anything. And I'm like, I mean, it's the story you told me. Like, you're number one sales rep twice in a row. You have like sales experience. You just need to tell it right. So maybe you don't have, that specific accolades of like sales, but I promise you, if you have anything, whether you were the leader of some group or, you convince someone to do something or whatever, you have some level of sales experience. So leverage it to the best of your abilities and make it sound sexy. So when you get that question, you're not nervous, you're excited because you're prepared. Number 2 is how to show up correctly. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I have not brought on what I think could be a pretty solid sales rep because within 1 second, I immediately drop them in my head as a quality potential hire because of how they presented themselves, how they carry themselves. And believe me, I've trained over 110 sales reps and placed them, so I'm a part of this hiring process. I've been on so many interviews on the sales rep side and the business owner and sales recruiter side to actually hire salespeople. So this is not my first endeavor. Biggest thing immediately is having a good Zoom background. You don't have to have a whole fancy bookshelf like this. I mean, don't get me wrong, it looks good. I know it looks good. A fancy little microphone, not necessary, but you open Zoom, you're like, oh shit, whoa, this guy's got a whole bookshelf going on, clean white background, nice shirt, doesn't have to be a whole freaking tuxedo. I usually rock the plain tees, and a nice microphone. Like, okay, this guy's, he's got it going on. I've been on interviews where dude's wearing a tie-dye shirt and like some alcohol-related hat, and he has clothes all over his room and his bed's not made. That's the background I see, and I'm just like, dude, like, come on. Like, I was just like, nope, not hiring. And again, phenomenal sales rep. I know he was good at what he does. Like, he, almost convinced me otherwise in the interview, but I'm just like, I don't want you showing up like this to sales calls. It rubbed me wrong. I'm not gonna hire you. Just immediately within 1 second, I'm like, I don't care what is said in this interview. I just can't do it. So the simplest thing of, you really only have one first impression, so don't waste it. And rather have it as an asset versus a liability. You also want to be like loose but focused. If you're super like tensed up, answering every question perfectly, and you're like so rigid, it's like, dude, like, this is a sales job. Like, you need to have good free flowing conversation, have some sense of humor, show that you're a human being, right? If you're all tensed up, you're non-verbally communicating that you're not worthy of the job. If you're lax, it's kind of showing that like, hey, this guy's crushing it. He knows he's good. Like, don't get me wrong, you don't want to be cocky and egotistical, but you want to convey that, hey, dude, I'm having fun. Like, I trust you. Like, I know I'm meant for this role. I know I'll crush it. It just carrying confidence by being loose and having fun with it is going to show, non-verbally that you're worthy of the job, and you mentally are communicating that by not being so tense and so rigid. And like, it is a sales position. Your job is having good conversation. So actually build a relationship with the dude. If you have some unique feature, don't be afraid to like call it out and like have some sense of humor about it. Like, dude, I know immediately, like, obviously you're hopping on the interview, you see my massive ears. They actually grew, a little bit of size because I'm so good at listening to prospects. So like, if you want to comment on it, just go ahead and go for it, dude. Like, you're like, what? This is different. Like, usually they're like, so tense and so nervous. This dude's cracking jokes and making fun of himself. And maybe if it's a thought in their head that they were already thinking about, they're like, this dude, he's funny, he's self-aware, this is interesting. Like, he's different than everyone else. And the goal is simply to just stand out so you're memorable. And then again, like, do your research. One sales job that I landed to where basically what they were doing was getting SBA loans for certain businesses. I knew nothing about SBA loans and getting capital and loans and like business credit. I didn't know any of that shit. So the second I applied for the interview and I knew I got it, it was like 3 days ahead. And I'm like, okay, how do I wow this guy? I have sales experience, but I don't know shit about what they actually do. I looked up the guy's name and I found that he did like 5 or 6 podcasts. Think God. So I watched every single 6 of these podcasts. I watched all of them. I found the founders, Instagram, his Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff. I watched all of those videos. I learned about SBA loans. I learned about, the interest rates and where they're at with things right now. And it was in the peak of COVID. So it was like prime time for SBA loans. And the second we hop on the interview, I immediately hey, I watched your founders, podcast. Like, this dude has a really good presence. Like, he knows how to carry himself. I'm sure selling his products are super easy. And, with his story of how he started 2 businesses by getting SBA loans, like, dude, like, he has such a good story. It'll be so easy to sell this, and it makes sense why he does what he does. And he was like, you watched like 7 hours worth of podcasts, like, just for this interview that we booked with 3 days notice? Like, I immediately just jumped up in his head. I don't know shit about SBA loans. And I'm like, yeah, I think right now with interest rates, being lower, this is like prime time, and they're probably selling like hotcakes. Like, are your sales guys having any issues, or are we just, closing every single person that gets on the phone? Because I would assume this is a breeze from what I know. And he was just like, this guy did his research. Like, he checks every box. The third way to crush an interview is understanding how to flip the frame. You don't want to sound too needy. Here's what I mean. Similar to a sales call, you don't want to sound super needy when you're in a sales conversation. And believe me, if they're hiring you for a sales role, you want the interview to be very similar to a sales call. And it actually is very similar to a sales call. You're just selling yourself. So if you're on a sales call and you act so needy and like you need the sale so bad, it's kind of the same thing in an interview. If you act like you need the job so bad and you're dying to get it and you'll do anything you can to get it, it's like, whoa. This guy like must not have much sales experience. Like, I really don't want him sounding like this on calls. Like, to be honest, like, maybe he doesn't have much job interviews for a reason. Like, maybe he's not that good. Maybe he doesn't have much experience. Like, you know what I mean? Same thing on the interview. So it's important and very crucial to have multiple options. Like, literally try to book out 4 interviews or so that week, or even if you only have 2, like, act like you have more than you actually do. By having options, it's like, oh wow, like, this guy's hungry, he needs a sales gig. Like, it's not like he's been unemployed forever and this is the only interview he's got. Like, he's got options, he's clearly good. And what I mean by flipping the frame is you want them to sell you on why it's a good opportunity for them to hire you. Not, I'll do anything to work for your company. It's, hey, I have a lot of companies that are actually looking to hire me right now. I have a couple questions for you. I'm kind of curious on what's the reason for you hiring this, this sales rep role in the first place. Like, did your closer just like leave because he didn't like it here? Is your marketing so good that you're overwhelmed and you need another sales guy? Like, tell me more about your business. Like, tell me the results you got for your clients. Tell me why I should work for you instead of your competitor. Like, what makes you stand out from your competitors? Now they're on their back foot. Like, oh my God, now I got to sell him on how good my company is so we can get this guy on board. And the reason we want to flip this frame is because it increases your status. It shows, oh wow, this guy's clearly an expert. It's not his first rodeo. He knows what he's doing. Number 4, how do you know the offer, the job is actually good? Because believe me, there are tons of bad businesses out there. And Alex Hormozi has this phenomenal quote, and it's actually quoted from someone else, which is, it's often not how fast we row, but what boat we're in. And if your sales job is a sinking boat with a hole in it, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're not gonna make that much money. Here's how we vet businesses that get access to the closing Bible, and here's how you should vet businesses that you actually want to work with. Here's the questions you can ask to actually qualify these businesses. In my opinion, they should be making bare minimum at least $75,000 a month in revenue. If you do the math and you're in like 10% commission, and you literally do 10% of what their monthly revenue is, if you're the only sales rep, by default, you should be making at least $7,500 a month, right? If they're making $20K a month and you're trying to make $8,000 a month, like, it doesn't add up. And if they have multiple sales reps, you have to divide that number by the amount of reps there are, which makes your number even lower. They need to be having a minimum of 10 sales calls per week. If there's like 1 call per day, you're literally just gonna be sitting there like twiddling your thumbs, like, what am I gonna do? Like, you don't even need a sales rep. Like, why aren't you taking the sales calls? Like, they need to have enough marketing, and their marketing has to be good enough for you to actually stay busy, especially in a commission only sales job, which is what I'm talking about specifically here. It's also good to know about their testimonials. Like, what results have you got for clients? Because believe me, I've sold on offers to where I'm promising the world and I'm saying all these things the business owner told me to say, and then they pay and they start getting the service, and then they come and text me and they say, hey, you said this was gonna happen and this was gonna happen. It's not happening. And the unfortunate thing about being a sales rep is, like, you don't have control on how well the business owner delivers. So if they're telling you to say one thing and that thing isn't happening, believe me, it's hard to roll out of bed every single day and sell something that just doesn't fucking work and doesn't get people results. And you should quit sales jobs if this is the case. Their systems, make sure they have basic things like a CRM. You know, they have their marketing, they have like a good lead flow, they have systems, they have appointment setters, you know, they have closers, they have an onboarding system, like super basic stuff like email automations, like a post opt-in flow for leads via like emails or SMS, like just basic stuff like that. Also, no brainer question. If they have existing sales reps, ask them how much they're making per month and what their close rate is. If their closing rate is like 10%, it probably means either the closer sucks or the leads suck. And you can ask more questions about their marketing or their current closer to dictate which one the problem is. Also, ask them how they get their leads and how they actually qualify them. Like, if they're just spamming their Calendly link to every single person who's kind of interested, they have no way of actually qualifying that this is the right person that you should be talking to. So if they have a process for warming up the leads, making sure they're a good fit, and disqualifying people that are not a good fit, it's a pretty good leading indicator that you're gonna have the correct warm leads on these actual calls. And then lastly, at the end of the conversation, the last thing you wanna do when they say, hey, do you have any questions? You're like, nope, I am clueless. I have nothing. Like, that's a red flag. Like, you should have questions. And when I'm interviewing someone and I ask this, I'm expecting them to, you know, have something ready. But it's like, nah, honestly, I'm good. I'm like, okay, like it's his first rodeo. You know what I mean? Just have something, even if it's basic. But since you're watching this video, you're gonna know exactly what to say. So watch right now, take notes, pay attention. So ask, describe your company culture. Like obviously, you know, I can make good money anywhere, but like, what are you looking for specifically in a sales rep, and how does your culture kind of work? Like what's the vibe of the company, the vibe of the team? That's important to know, because if they're just like, hey, work 15 hours a day, 7 days a week, never stop picking up the phone, like hustle, like I don't care if they're a good fit or not, if they have a credit card, make them buy, like you don't want none of that. Another great question to ask is, what is the ideal, like perfect client? And then also, what disqualifies someone from being a perfect client? Because it's important to know what makes a client a good fit, what makes a client not a good fit. Because on the sales rep side, you don't just want to be closing anyone that can pay for it, and then the clients are getting results because they're not the right fit as a client. So this could be the reason they're hiring, you know, right now, is they don't like that their sales rep currently does this. So it's important to ask. Number 4, and I love this one, what's one thing your current sales guy is doing that you would want me to do differently? They're gonna tell you exactly what to do, and also it's gonna make your relationship with the business owner a lot better, because you're already doing the things their other sales reps are not doing. This is the fastest way to be the number 1 sales rep on the sales team. And then number 5, this is the one that I was talking about at the beginning of this video. It's based on everything that you've heard in this interview, do you have any reason to believe that I would not be a good fit for this role? Oh my Lord. This is the most phenomenal question to ask. It's an objection-seeking question. It conveys that you are so damn good at sales. I love it. I had someone ask this and we literally hired him, not on the spot, because that's a bad look. If they try to hire you on the spot, don't do it. Tell them you have to think about it for 2 days or something, it doesn't matter. But he asked this question, I'm like, yeah, to be honest, I'm kind of worried because you've not had experience, you know, working with people in like the finance sector specifically. And he's like, oh dude, like my dad's in finance. I go to lunch with these people, dinner with these people all the time. They're always at my house. Like I'm very familiar with these people. I talk with them. I kind of know how they act. So that's nothing. Anything else? And I was like, shit, that was actually gonna be the reason I didn't hire him. But since he mentioned that, I guess I don't have any reason to not hire him. So we're gonna move him to the next stage, and then we ended up hiring him. And that is it for this video. Those are the 5 things that you can do to increase your likelihood to crush interviews and land your dream job. Stay tuned for the next video. Subscribe while you're at it, and comment below any questions or any things you've done to land sales jobs, or maybe a struggle that you've had with an interview and the reason why you haven't got it, and I'll answer your comment below with the right thing to do. Peace.